Please join me and give a warm welcome to Sedgwick County Manager Tom Stolz.
It's like this every week of my life with these commissioners. I'm sorry that Mr. Stevens was not here today because John would give me my normal beat down when he sees me, but Jim took care of that for John. So, and as you can tell, that since I left the police department in 2012, I've not been able to hold a job. It's hell going through that. I want to thank Mr. Todd and Carl and many of you in this room for first of all, what you do for the community, what you mean to the community. This is the fourth time I think I've talked to Pachyderm. It's been I've had a different job every time I talk here. But I like coming here because to me, this represents salt of the earth people. It represents smart people. It represents engaged people. And I'm honored to talk to a group like this. So thank you for the invite and allowing me to come and talk about one of my favorite subjects, which is Sedgwick County. I thought we'd just do 4 things today, and then maybe have a dialogue at the end and a discussion. But I want to kind of just talk, and I know I'm dealing with smart people here, but I just want to kind of talk about the role of county government in a state system, its relationship to its cities and its townships, and then I want to talk about how we spend money. A general discussion about budget preparation and budget development. And then I want to talk specifically for a minute about Sedgwick County budget for 2020, what we went through with commissioners last spring and in the summer, and actually ratified in August. And then I want to leave you with things that we all lose sleep at night over. Commissioner Howell and I lose sleep at night over some pretty heavy-duty topics that this county and this region are going to face in the very near future, and then we can discuss that. So, see if I can figure out how to make this flip. The county government is different from municipal governments in that we are a conduit for the state of Kansas in many regards, and I mean that from a funding perspective and from a service perspective. Many of our departments, and I've left some org charts on the table if you care to look at them. The county organizational chart is radically different than a municipal organizational chart. It is very diversified. There is, as in any government org chart, the top is the people, should always be. If you ever see an org chart that does not have the people at the top, call somebody down on that. But then there's a list of elected officials, not just our 5 commissioners, but a sheriff and a district attorney and a register of deeds and a clerk's office and a treasurer's office, and then there's an 18th judicial court. All at the top, all working for the people, but they are to some degree independent, yet work under the same budget system. That's what makes some of the budgeting in Sedgwick County very challenging. So from a service perspective, we the county provide a number of services on behalf of the state of Kansas. Things like we have an appraiser who is actually appointed by Kansas Department of Revenue, but all of the employees that work for that appraiser are Sedgwick County employees, so we fund that operation through our local tax dollars. We collect taxes through the treasurer's office. Linda Kazira is our treasurer. She's elected by you all, but her employees that work and do the day-to-day operations are actually funded by Sedgwick County taxpayer dollars, most of them. We have a register of deeds and a clerk's office, same dynamic. They're elected officials. They're paid for, though, out of Sedgwick County tax dollars on behalf of the state of Kansas. We have an elections commissioner. We have a sheriff, a district attorney, and then a number of departments within the county, such as Department of Aging, Department of Corrections, ComCare, which is our mental health component, are funded partially by local tax dollars, but a majority funded by state pass-through dollars on behalf of the state of Kansas to provide those services on a county-wide level. So it's interesting. You won't hear that from city managers or city leaders because we are such a conduit of the state. It makes county government just a little bit unique. Then we also do provide what are traditionally considered general government services. We have a finance department, we have an HR department, we have an IT department, we have a number of services, public works, that provide very similar services, so there are similarities between municipal and county government, so we have same kind of general government operations. We also deal with a little bit of quality of life, and we always have a randy discussion about government role and quality of life issues. And we fund considerable amounts to the Sedgwick County Zoo, Exploration Place. We have, I want to get this right, we have 3 parks, I think. We have Sedgwick County Park, which is over at 21st and Ridge. We have Afton Park, which is at Lake Afton. And then we have the Northeast Park, which is the Furley site that the county acquired half a dozen years ago. Is it the main wheelhouse of county government to run parks? No, the city runs way more parks than we do, but we do have our hand in that operation. And then, like it or not, the county government, and specifically Sedgwick County, provides some level, is expected to provide some level of leadership on a local and regional level. So we have 21 cities in Sedgwick County. We have a big city that we're sitting in the middle of now, and then we have a lot of class 2 and 3 cities, and a lot of times these cities look to the county for leadership and guidance on policy issues, on law issues, and on issues of governance. And then we are also, just because of the nature of Sedgwick County, we're a regional leader in the state of Kansas. We're second biggest county, we have the biggest city in the state of Kansas, and so with the 10-county region, which we are affiliated with routinely, both on economic development standards and just growth standards, the 9 surrounding counties of Sedgwick County to make us a 10-county region, they will look a lot of times to Sedgwick County for leadership. So like it or not, we have this leadership role on a local level and on a regional level. So let's talk about just the county budget in general, and before I get into specifics of 2020. I have never been in government now for almost 40 years. I'm getting old. When you get old enough, you just remember everything. I've never ever had any set of elected city council or county commission come in and say, let's raise taxes this year and provide better services. It's never happened. Not saying it won't, but it's not. So we're always coming to the table when we start talking about budget with, there's no tax increase. Let's do what we can with what we got as efficiently and as effectively as possible and make this thing work under the current amount of money people are paying in. So every year, we use this privilege of budget to review operations and make sure that our core services are intact. First of all, that we are providing core services, that we're not straying off the line and getting into a piece of business that government should not be in, but that our core services are intact and they're efficient and we're providing good service. That's a lot of what I do, is I'll just look at operations, I make sure we're staffed as well as we can be, and I make sure that we are running as efficiently as we can be, and are we doing something we shouldn't be doing? Are we doing something that we could push out to private enterprise or private industry? Are we doing what government is supposed to be doing? And the commissioners help steer me on this and help guide us on what their expectations are, because they're what? They're the representative of the people. I always tell them this. I don't see Jim sitting out there. I see 100,000 people sitting in Jim's chair, because Jim represents that many people. Same with Carl when he was on the commission. They represent 100,000 people, and they are the first line of, to me, what means the people. And then we try to get out to as many as you can, but they drive the ship. We try to, when we go through this process, we have constant argument in staff about potential efficiencies. Can we collapse or combine? Can we do with less? Can we get efficient? If we buy a piece of technology, can we let 5 FTEs go? Can we shrink the size of this operation so it's as efficient and as lean as possible? We have those discussions. In fact, it's November, so we're getting into those kinds of discussions again at a staff level. Even before we go to the people, we're having that discussion at a staff level. And we answer the $1 million question here at the end. Is keep the size of government at minimum, yet provide the services that the people demand of us. That's the question we ask many, many times, hundreds of times, thousands of times as we go through a budget process. So let me just quickly talk about the process itself. We are currently in Sedgwick County preparing and readying for our 2021 budget discussion. The county budget's 1 year in advance. City budget's 3 years in advance, but in reality, that next year is the critical year. So for us, it's 2021. What's that budget going to look like? I went to an ICMA conference a couple weeks ago, and things are moving so fast with technology and how we do business that now it's being recommended, because I'm a big fan of a 3-year budget. I like to project ahead, look for problems, look for opportunities, and now they're actually coaching against doing that. They're saying just budget 1 or 2 years in advance because things are changing so quickly. You don't know what's going to be driving your fire truck in 5 years. You don't know what's going to be providing your appraisals in 5 years. It's changing. Technology is changing so fast. So we sat down and we began the discussion in November and December amongst staff of preparation and analysis of the budget, and this is where I started asking the department heads for hard questions. Is what you're doing today matter? Is it helping people? Is it what our commissioners want? And what can we do differently, more effectively, more efficiently to serve the people of this 500,000 people of Sedgwick County better? We begin to ask those questions, and we will prepare an outline of what we think the budget's going to be, and we hope we're close, right? We hope we're close. Then we will meet with the people, the people's representative, which is our commissioners. And in Sedgwick County, that's right after the first of the year, we'll have what's called budget retreat, or budget meeting, budget discussion. We'll sit down with a half day or a whole day with the commission, and we will just listen to them talk. And we will be taking notes, and if they ask questions, we'll answer them. If they want research done, we'll do it. And we begin, that's our very first dialogue of the upcoming budget with the people. Then, after we've heard what the people say, we go back as staff and we craft and modify what we thought the budget was going to be into what they want it to be. We have manager hearings, so I will sit and I will listen to the budget of every department, and we have over 40 in the county, very diverse operation. And that includes, I hear from the sheriff, from the district attorney, from the clerk, from the treasurer. I hear from the elected offices too, because they are coming from the same budget that the commission controls. So we will hear all about what they want, what they need, what their efficiencies are, and we ask the hard questions of them too. Then we craft the budget up, we shape it up, and then we take it back to the people again. And then in public meetings, on TV, or on streaming video, or in a public arena, they will listen to what the department's needs are. And they will make changes, invariably. And then I craft what's called a recommended budget, which I push forward to them in the middle of June. And that, I always tell them, I hope I'm 98% there. I mean, I'm hoping that we're not 58% there. I'm hoping we are right there with where you want to be, and then they will come in, and then they will hear from the public, the 500,000, have the opportunity at a series of community meetings online, at their meetings that they routinely attend. They will begin to put this out publicly and get the feedback, and then they can come in at the last second and make tweaks and changes to modify the budget one last time, and we ratify the thing in August. So that's generally what we go through, and Bob Layton's up here and tell you the same thing. That's exactly how they do it at the city. Very similar process they go through to craft their budget. So for this year, one of the first things we did at the beginning of a budget year is we kind of just take an assessment of the climate, what's going on in the county. So if you think about Sedgwick County for a minute, and I'm sure you've had many speakers at this podium tell you the same kind of thing. We're in recovery. It's slower than what the coasts are going through. We're getting there. It's better, but it's not as good as it was before the Great Recession. And we're still there today. We did, based on what our commission wanted us to do, we did an analysis on our county pay system, because like a lot of you in this room that are affiliated with businesses or run business, we're having a hard time getting a workforce right now. And we have to be, with our 2,800 employees, we have to be competitive in the workforce. So we did a compensation study, and it showed we're a bit under market in comparative fashion. Technology is becoming an animal in all organizations that we're going to have to control a little bit. We currently spend in Sedgwick County of a $450-ish million budget, about 20 million on technology. That number goes up every year. And so we have to make sure that we stay, because technology equals efficiency, right? That's what they tell me anyway. So every time I think we get technology, or we have computers, or we have all these systems, that's less full-time employees theoretically we should need. But we're having to keep an eye on that. And then you have to make sure you're updated too, right? And your personal devices, your phones, your laptops, what happens after 5 or 6 years? things becomes a brick because the technology is moving so fast, you have to go buy a new one. The government's in the same boat. So we have to make sure that we continue to fund it appropriately, that we continue to stay updated, that we continue to protect it because people are trying to steal it. And so we need to make sure that we never jeopardize the county government system because all of us have personal information in these government records. We need to protect that with our lives if we have to. And then we're seeing this year in 2020 budget process an increased demand in public safety. And I'm going to talk about this again at the end when we talk about challenges, because I've called this, I refer to this as the public safety tsunami. We are getting hit at all levels, from the sheriff to 911 to district attorney to the courts. Business is booming. And I'm sure if you have Gordon Ramsay up here from WPD, he'll tell you the same thing. Business is booming right now in the criminal justice system. And something's going to have to change because we're going to spend ourselves out of existence here if we don't get a curb on this. So we saw a tremendous demand in public safety in our 2020 budget analysis and adoption. We saw tremendous demand in ComCare, mental health. You know, and I'm old enough now, we were all in the 1980s, I hate to admit, I was working in the 80s, and in the 90s as a cop. And we were wringing our hands when the state started shutting down some of the state mental hospitals. Like, what are we going to do with the people? And we were wringing our hands and we were worried about that. We were wringing our hands and we were worried when we started creating terms like crack baby, alcohol fetal syndrome. What's going to happen when these kids are 25 years old? Well, we're living that dream today, right? They are 25 years old, and we're seeing this huge demand and cry for mental health services. And many of these people are indigent, so they don't have the resources, the funds to access the system. And where are they at? They're out on these streets. And many of them, there's multiple problems: homelessness, methamphetamine or opioid addiction, in addition to the mental health problems that they're already having. And we are not unique as a county or a city. It's going on across the country. We're going to have to tackle this. We have the same old issues that every organization has. We have an aging road system, an aging bridge system, so we have public works demands. And then we have just in general government issues, things like space needs. And I'll talk about that in a little bit too. Specific with the county, Mark Bennett's growing. I don't know when Mark's been in here last. I'm sure you've had him talk. He's getting so much business thrown at him, he's having to expand. And Mark's a frugal guy. I mean, he's not a waster. And he comes to us and he needs more space, he needs more resource, because the front line of the justice system, the cops and the sheriff's deputies, are pushing things to him. He has to reconcile them. He's the gatekeeper. So we have those types of office space needs and issues going on in the county. The current financial situation, the state removed mortgage registration fees from the counties getting that. So this was 2019 was the first year where we realized none of that anymore. That cut the county budget by $4.8 million. Luckily, we've had several years to adapt and modify. That's just some of the things that happens in local government when funding gets diverted or cut. As I mentioned, the economy is showing signs of improvement. The county, because we've had great commissioners historically, Carl Settinger is one of them, who were very judicious in how we spent, very judicious in how we bonded, very judicious in how we operate. And we are today the county is in great financial situation thanks to these commissioners that we've been fortunate to have for the last couple generations. We maintain the highest rating, and I was told to correct this slide. It's not financial institutions. Let me get the right word on it, so I'm on the record as the right thing. Maintain the highest ratings of credit rating institutions. That's what that should say. So we have AAA, S&P rating, and that is because of our commissioners and because we have good finance people. They listen very carefully. They care about this. We manage money very well. We are not careless with money, and so we enjoy these ratings. Okay, so now let's talk specifically about 2020 budget. We sat down with the commission and listened to them in February, and this is almost a year ago now. And we listened, as I said, we staff, we just sit and listen. We let them dialogue. They do 90% of the talk, we do 90% of the listening. We're taking notes. They wanted us to look at it and address employee needs, and that's not just pay, that's morale, that's training, that's growth opportunities, it's how we care for our people in a 2,800 member organization. And they wanted us to focus this year on behavioral health issues, which is a little bit, and yet they still want us to maintain the public safety structure. In other words, we're not going to cost the sheriff or 911 or public safety on behalf of mental health. But they wanted us to take an extra look this year at mental health needs and what was happening in that industry. They instructed us to maintain minimum fund balances and keep the emergency fund as low as possible. They wanted us to utilize inventory and prioritization processes, and that's a fancy way of saying they want us to ask the hard questions. Are we providing the right kind of service? Is it a service that belongs in government, or can we get rid of it out to private industry? And can we be more efficient in our operations? And then they wanted us, we always, every year, departments are going to come to the table and say, we need. Are the we need questions viable? Are they validated? Are they needed? And what do they want? And carefully consider them if they are, and let the electeds know what the asks are. And then actually at the end of the day, they have to make the hard decisions of what we're going to fund or what we're not going to fund. I try to trim it as best I can for them because I hate to put them in that situation, but at the end of the day, the power sits with the people and they make the decisions of what we're going to fund and what we're not going to. And of course, they always caveat it with, we're not raising mill levy, not raising taxes. So we have to do it with the current system that we have today as far as taxing. We focus on 7 areas, and for those of you that are looking at an org chart, there's 4 primary divisions within county government. Public services, public safety, public works, and general government. We take an extra look at culture and rec, economic development, and what the county role in economic development is and should be, and then we always care about our debt service and how much money we're spending on debt and whether we're going to incur any more debt or whether we're going to try to not incur debt. All of these, and I've taken about 15 pages in a budget book and tried to put it into one. All of these are departments within the county. If you see an asterisk by the name, that means they actually got an FTE, and we treat FTEs very valuably. Why? Because it costs the budget more, and it's a forever cost. It's not a program or a process. It's the thing that goes into our budget that we will have to sustain for years. So, ComCare, mental health receives a person, Department of Aging receives a person, election office. Those are mostly part-time positions because Tabitha has to ramp up and ramp down elections, but they receive some people. Everything else on here got some type of enhancement, maybe through technology or a piece of equipment or something that goes on. Doesn't represent an FTE, but they got some kind of budgetary adjustment in the positive. In public safety, and everything here is hurting. And they need people. All of them, I could parade them up here one at a time and I could say we need more people. We're not keeping up with the demand. And then we have to just whittle this and throttle this backwards. But 911 got 3 more dispatchers. The sheriff, I don't know when the sheriff's been in last, but today every crime that is committed out there has what component to it? One of these. We didn't have that in my day. We didn't have to worry about what was on a cell phone, what evidence was there, what communication was there. So he needs people, and the one position that he got this year was a technician that can forensically decipher, can grab one of these and look at every phone call and every text message that was made out to help solve a crime. Weird, isn't it? I mean, it's just, and it's not like we can say, okay, sheriff, we'll give you that one, but you're gonna have to cut one of them burglary detectives. You're gonna have to cut one of them homicide detectives, because those crimes are still occurring too. It's just getting more complex. So he got an extra body. EMS got an extra, more demand there. They got an extra body, and everybody else got some type of, when you see fire district, even and the sheriff to some degree, corrections, they all have what? They all have these, they all have radios, they all have technology, and what does technology do? It gets old, it has to be replaced, and what do the costs do every time you do that? They go up. So we have to modify and extrapolate that and keep them whole so they can continue to provide service. 2021 and 22 and 23 and on are going to look a lot like our arguments in 2020. And I shouldn't say arguments, these are robust discussions, right? We're going to have to do something at a level past county government to deal with criminal justice. And I'm sure you've had speakers in here to come and talk to you about criminal justice reform. How long have we been talking about that? Something's going to have to bend on that. We cannot spend our way out of this. We cannot spend our way out of crime. We're going to have to think of a new and unique way to deal with criminal justice. But for next year, I know that the sheriff's going to come in, he's going to need bodies. I know that a Laura Forshee from 911 is going to come in and need more dispatchers because her call volume is increasing. I know we're going to need EMS people. I know we're going to need fire people. I just know that the discussion of public safety is going to continue. And if you get Mark Bennett in here, he'll scare the heck out of you, because he'll talk about what kids are going through and the number of child in need of care cases, we call them SINC cases, they're skyrocketing. Why? Parenting, how they're cared for, the conditions that they're living in, put them into a high-risk category, and those numbers are not stable. They are not going down, they're going nothing but up. And what does that mean for us in the future? What does that mean for our mental health system, our ambulance system, our 911 system? It's problematic. We have these escalating behavioral health issues. That's going to come back again and see us in 2021. We have no regional, there's gaps in this system. When you look at a mental health system, and we have good mental health professionals here that work for the county, there's a scale of system that everything from, they always say that 1 out of 5 people have some type of mental health issue. I was like, well, we got 5 commissioners, they're 5 for 5, right? Now, the sad reality is 1 out of 5 adults suffer through some experience of mental health in their lifetime, some type of crisis. And so it's everything from something that's pretty minor, anxiety, a little bit of depression, whatever and it slides up to where it can get severe, to where people cannot even function as human beings anymore because their conditions are so severe. There's a grading of curve there. So what we try to do is we look for gaps in that system. Where does the system fall down? And one of the things we don't have in Sedgwick County, the second most populated county in the state, we're going to have a hospital system to put long-term care people in that have that on this side of the scale, very serious. I can go down there right now on Douglas and find you about 3 of these people. That some trip to the jail sure as heck ain't going to help them. Some trip to a ComCare crisis center where they get 24 hours of care might get them off the street for 20, but it's not going to help them. They need to be hospitalized and given treatment and given medicine and try to rehabilitate them. We have nothing in this county that has that long-term facet. So those are the kinds of gaps we look at, and we look to the state of Kansas to be partner with us and help us fund that and help solve that problem. We have a workforce shortage in the county government, and we're seeing that across the land when you got all the big employers yelling at you saying, we need people, Spirit, we need people, Textron, we need people, Cargill, we need people. Then what's the role of government in trying to provide for that and facilitate that? We ought to be at the table, right? Then we always look for effective consolidations. We've done several. We have an exploited missing children unit that's been in existence since the 90s. That's a sheriff and police combination unit. They're very effective, they're very, very efficient. We have the metropolitan area group planning department. We have a single one for the county that covers city of Wichita and municipalities as well. We have metropolitan area building and construction, which we did in 2012. Now we're looking ahead. What can we do in fire? What can we do between sheriff and police? And I'm not talking full consolidation there, but what can we do functionally? Can they share record sections? Can they share property and evidence? Can they share functionalities that save us people and money and provide a superior service? And Jim's heard me say this before, so has Carl. We ask ourselves 2 questions when we talk about consolidation. We don't consolidate or unify because we want to. We consolidate or unify because A, we can do it less cost, or we can provide better service. And if the answer to both those questions is yes, then get the heck out of the way, let's get it done. And get all this political and ego things out of the way, and let's just get it done. Now, if it gets trickier when it's yes, maybe. We're having a rousing discussion on fire services in the county. And I haven't got to the point yet where I can say we can do it cheaper. I think we could provide better service, but I don't know that we can save any money. So we have to go through the fiscal analysis, answer those kinds of questions, and tackle those kinds of consolidation issues. And there's a lot of them out there to have. And then, I know it's important to this group, and it's important to the county group, and it's important to the people, is let's keep government at the minimum size necessary and not go above it. And that's the discussion we have during every budget cycle. And what can we trim, and what can we stop? And maybe sometimes you have to tell people bad news. We can't provide that anymore. There's no funding for it. It's not a role of government. We need to get out of the business of doing that. We need to ask ourselves that question every year. So those are all things that I'm not going to say I worry about them. I think about them in the middle of the night. What can we do better? What's the challenge going to be? And I know that the commissioners think about it too, because they represent you. So now that's all I had, and we can talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Okay, we have one question right here, second one hand, and then I'll come around to you as quickly as possible.
We okay on time, Mr. Todd or Carl? Are we doing okay on time?
Yeah, you're doing great.
Okay.
Yes, sir, you mentioned the consolidation issue, but are there areas throughout under your responsibility that could be contracted out, possibly to save some money down the road, because yes, your budget's going to get very tight.
Let's talk about that. I'll give you a simple example. We have elevators inside City Hall, right? 6 of them. None of them work worth a darn. We contract that out to a private vendor. Now, so the question is, and this is I'm taking a really hard question that you gave and simplifying this, I'm dumbing it down to my level. Should we hire a full-time employee that can just do that and maintain those elevators so we don't have to contract that out? And we have this discussion on a zillion topics every week. And so then, to me, it's very simple. I say, show me the cost. Show me the analysis, because I know I've got to go explain it to commissioners who will ask those questions. Show me the cost savings and the efficiencies in that, and if it's true, then we look at bringing in a government FTE to replace the contracting. And it comes down to, I can't change staffing table, neither can Bob over in the city side. The electeds make the decision, change staffing table. So I get an analysis together, I go to the electeds, and I show them, listen, we're spending this much on contracted elevator services. If we hire a full-time position, we can do it cheaper. Now, they still have a political decision to make. We're taking what a private citizen is making money on and making a living on, taking it from them, putting it into government. Is that fair? They have to end up wrestling that question too. And sometimes we choose to just continue to contract it out because it's just fairest for the system. And then we have a bidding process, and you go through and you have a fair system and you try to get as cheap as possible. But we have that discussion all the time on a number of issues. And when that's why it's so important to decide what core. I mean, I think, for example, what the sheriff does is core. I mean, we can't contract that away. They have certain powers and authority within a system that nobody else outside of government can have. That's the easy one. But for every one of those, there's about 15 where we could begin to have the debate is, should government even be doing that, and maybe we should contract that out. Did I get close to answering your question? All right, good.
Next question right here.
Hi. I think the purpose of government is to do things that the citizens can't do themselves, which I think you did a good job of explaining that. It would seem obvious to me that the money that we're losing on the exploration place should be funneled to positions like the sheriff and these other things. That there should be maybe a transparency, say, here's how much money is being lost on a building that everybody wants, $4 million, and we'd be putting this into, whether it's the helicopters, can we do something like that?
That's a great question. And let's talk about 15 slides ago, quality of life issues. So today, there is not a museum in this town that stands on its own that I'm aware of. All of them are subsidized by government. City has some, we have some. Our biggies are Exploration Place and Zoo. We fund TCAM, African American Museum. We fund the Sedgwick County Museum. And all of them, and if you watch Commission had a really tough one about 2 or 3 weeks ago with the Air Museum. Essentially, the commission gets faced with, do you want this to fail, fall flat, go defunct, or do you want to prop it and give Tim Norton, who's the new director out there, a chance to fix this? They're faced with that all the time. Those are hard questions. So let's look at our 2 big ones. Let's look at Zoo and Exploration Place. Both of them are contractual obligations of the county right now. In other words, the commission decided a number of years ago to sign a multi-year contract to fund them. Both of them, what I can say is, if you look at their operations, and the Zoo is about a $12 million a year operation, and EP is probably half of that, there may be $6 million a year. We subsidize, I take that back, the EP is more 4.5. We subsidize half those budgets, county. So we're giving the EP $2.2 million a year. We're giving Zoo about $5 million a year, and then the commission voted a year or two ago on a $2 million 3-year deal to help them do their development of their entryway and some other exhibits out there. So currently, in the current budget cycle, we're actually giving about $8 million a year to the Zoo. $2 million of that will come off next year. So the question is, how much should government, well, let's, even before that, should government subsidize museums or quality of life issues? Is it an expectation of government to fund that? And if so, how much? And these guys have to face that every budget cycle, and they will face it again because we're coming out of contract with EPN the Zoo, and I'm gonna ask them the hard questions. Okay, now you've been given EP $2.2 million. Is it good for the community to have exploration place? Well, hell yes. I mean, we're all gonna agree that that's a good asset. Should it be paid for with government dollars? That's the question that the commission has to face. So we bring up to 2.2 million, and they have to, the hard decision is going to be, okay, we're short in all these other areas. We have all this stress on this budget. We're not going to raise taxes. How do we allocate this money? And that we will have that discussion. And we'll do the same thing with the Zoo. These are gems in the community. EP and the Zoo, they're wonderful assets.
But if you would show it, say, hey, we're not raising budgets, pick your poison. Can't have both.
That's what it feels like, right, Commissioner? Picking your poison.
Or do you want a building where everybody can look at?
Yeah.
Or we can raise taxes and have both?
Yeah. Well, option 3 has never been put on the table. I think they would have a hard time. It comes down to prioritization. That's a great question and a great debate. That's why I love working in government, because we wrangle this all the time. It's very interesting on what role of government should be in how we play the game here in the city and the county. Go ahead.
Tom, we got a lot of questions, so
Okay.
moving right along with
Okay.
this one.
Philip Garcia, thank you for being here today, sir. And I appreciate the fact that you seem to be a very forward-thinking.
I get blamed on that a lot. Yeah, it's a shortfall, but
So you might appreciate this observation. So last weekend, my 8-year-old and I went to Walmart at 6 o'clock in the morning, saw something we'd never seen before. It was, if you can imagine, like a mini Zamboni, if you know what a Zamboni is.
Yeah.
It's the thing that, makes ice.
Cleans the ice, yeah. Yeah.
So we see something that looks like that at 6 o'clock in the morning in Walmart, and what it is, it was a robot that was cleaning the floors. Hadn't seen anything like that before. My son and I spent maybe about a minute watching it to make sure it didn't bump into anything, and we were just amazed at what we were looking at.
Yeah.
And so that observation goes back to, something that was science fiction is now science fact.
Yeah.
The reality is technology is improving. Not to say that I want anybody to lose their job, but is the county thinking, 10, 15 years in the future as to how technology will take over some of maybe, I don't want to say menial roles, but roles that could be better used or serviced by technology?
Yeah, as best we can. I mean, you talk to people that are in the technology game, and all of this automated intelligence and who's going to be driving cars and who's going to be, sure, we have that discussion when we talk to commission, and particularly when we get ready to spend a lot of money on something. I'm talking, we have a discussion right now because we have a space issue in the building because Bennett's operation and the court operations are growing so fast and so much that we may have to move administration out. So we have this admin building discussion. But then you have to look ahead, past next year, past the year, because we're talking 20, 30, 40 million dollars before you spend that. What's it going to look like? What's the technology going to look like in 5 years? So we do the best we can on that. And people will tell you, be wary of spending that kind of money for those kinds of things, because you're going to think that technology is going to be able to replace people to some degree before long. Now, are we ever going to have robot sheriffs? Maybe. But not, so that there's certain things. We have to have a live person answer a 911 call. We have to have firemen that go out and actually attack structures and make medical calls and make human decisions. You can go through there, but what you do is you go through this whole organizational chart and you look at what's technology going to be like in 5, 10 years. We're having a discussion right now about road maintenance in the county. It's a thing called a pug mill. It is a device that will let us do cold mix roads in the county. We have 150 miles of cold mix roads, which are in decay. And we're having the discussion, and one of the discussions is what's road technology going to look like in 5 or 10 years? Are there going to be new synthetic materials, cheaper, better, longer lasting? So as we even get ready to spend a few million, $2 and $3 million, we ask ourselves those questions. But you have to be careful on that too, because otherwise you will paralyze yourself and continue to have bad system, inefficient system, because you're frightened to move forward because technology is moving too fast, and then you're hurting the system and you're hurting the people. So yes, we have that discussion a lot. We prognosticate as best we can, but I have yet to have somebody tell me when a car is going to drive itself. What year is a car going to drive itself? It's soon, right? It's in our lifetime, but when? So I can budget for that. When somebody tells me that, then we'll make accounts.
Again, thanks for coming. Just looking at your organizational chart, it's interesting that Extension Center, Exploration Place, Parks and Zoos are all under the Deputy County Commissioner, but
Deputy County Manager, okay.
Yeah, the Chief Financial Officer has responsibility for the in-trust bank arena.
Yeah.
Why the difference?
Okay, so when and Carl can help me with this, he might have been a commissioner at the time, when we moved forward with the arena, and the designation was where the arena fit under the organizational chart, the CFO, who at that time was Chris Konis, was listed as the entity that took care of arena matters. He was the signing authority, or even over the county manager. So to answer your question, that is just carried through over 10 years. Whether that's the right model or not, I don't know. And we've had I forgot to mention the arena. We also have an arena. It is a Sedgwick County piece of property. It's a $200 million asset that we own, and it's getting older every year, right? And the technology gets older, and we have to keep it up and keep it nice so people want to go. So, but to answer your question, it's just a historical. That was put under CFO from get-go. Not a very good answer, but the way it is. And then Kaufman, the deputy county manager, inherits the zoo and EP because he historically, now if he would ever retire, I might recalculate that, but he has worked in that environment since Ron Holt left, and he knows that system better, so I put that under him naturally. That's the city of misfit toys, right? Under a government organizational chart, it really doesn't fit real good anywhere, so we just try to divide and conquer there as a management team.
Okay, we've got a couple of minutes left. Here's a question, then
Sure.
time for maybe one more.
Hello, I'm Costner. I've heard budget guys use the term robbing from Peter to pay Paul.
Use what?
The term robbing from Peter to...
Yeah, okay, yeah, we know that game.
And since the commissioners are prioritizing security, who's paying? In other words, what departments are shrinking to fit that bill?
So, yeah. It's kind of back to this gentleman's question on prioritization. And every time the commissioners or us or staff, or we come in and we recommend an increase in something, the natural question is what? Where's the decrease, right? So we're going to rob Peter, pay Paul. And who's going to get the decrease? Because we have finite resource. So, and if your exact question was, if we're going to ramp up public safety, where's it going to come from? And that's the question that these commissioners have to face every April, May, and June, July. And ultimately it goes out to the people on how we're going to balance that budget, and who gets and who doesn't get, and who gets cut and who gets additions. I don't know that there's a good science to that. That's why we have commissioners. That's why we're not going to replace them with AI either. You're going to have to have human beings sitting there listening to the constituents, hearing what's important to people, and funding that at the expense of maybe what people are not seeing as so critical. That is their role in the government system. Council people, commission people, state legislators, Senate, they got to listen and and all across the spectrum, government's having to make that kind of decision. Why? We're tapped out on taxes, right? I mean, we can't continue to spend our way out of these issues. So we have that discussion every year and make those hard decisions. But I guarantee you in 2021, we will rob Peter to pay Paul. We will do that. It depends on what it depends on who Paul is to the people. That's the important thing to us, is what the people need. That's not a very good answer to your question. It's the reality of it, though. Go ahead.
Last question.
Go ahead, sir.
Good afternoon. I just went through a small restaurant getting licensed and so on and serving, beer and wine. ABC, Department of Revenue, City Health, half a dozen different departments, all asking basically the same information,
Yeah.
but all of them assessing a fee.
Yeah.
Is there anybody looking at coordination? Because the applications are basically similar. Why not fill out one, spread it around, cut the fees? Because
Yeah.
the fees have been thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Is anybody looking at that?
Well, let me just make since you're talking about liquor laws, so I was a cop for 31 years. To this day, I don't understand our liquor laws in the state of Kansas. It's the most convoluted, complex, mired down, over-regulated system ever in the state. And I mean, I was there, and at the end of the day, we're asking, well, how do we enforce this, and how do we not enforce? You have to understand the laws to enforce it. Answer your question, no. Using liquor laws as a threshold, if the county's involved in that, we're always going to look at what can we deregulate, unregulate, or make simpler for people to manage and use. That's what we did with building and construction. Try to make it as simple and easy to use. We need to do it in the planning department to some degree. Make it simpler for people to use. Make that process simpler to use. Unfortunately, on that exact example that you gave me, it's a city-to-state connection. County is not involved in that. But I would take that exact question to city leadership, to city council, and talk about how mired this system is, because I can vouch for everything you said is true. It is, and it's cumbersome. And if you want to roll up a restaurant or a business quickly and be able to serve liquor, give it up. It takes forever to go through that process and get all that approval, pay for it as you're going. And so I agree, somebody needs to look at that system. So whoever your city rep, you live in the city? Whoever your city rep is, talk with them about that, because it does need to be overhauled. I just can't help you from the county because we don't touch that system. Thank goodness. I don't want to touch that system. So, okay.
Thank you. County Manager Tom Stolz.
Thanks, Brad.